Welcome to this second session of the 13th Adhyaya of Shree Bhagavad Geeta. We start with our gratitude towards the Lord, with whose grace everything is possible. We pray to this Guru Shishya Parampara, through which this knowledge is preserved and transmitted to reach us from generations. I pay my respects to my Guruji, Pujya Guruma, with whose grace I am able to learn these scriptures and I am able to share this understanding with you. We start with a prayer. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So the 13th Adhyaya is the Kshetragna Vibhaga Yoga, which starts with Arjuna's question that he wants to know what is the Kshetra, what is the Kshetragna, and he wants to understand the clear differences between the two. And Bhagavan starts describing him in the next shloka, saying that Idam Shariram Kshetram. So this Sharira, this body, is telling Arjuna, this your body is Kshetra. Idam means this, what is visible, what is, can be seen, what can be experienced, what can be known is Kshetra. So this entire world, Jagata, is very clearly known to us that this is different from us, and that's why this entire world is a Kshetra. But Bhagavan clearly tells Arjuna that Idam Sharidam Kshetram, this Sharira, your body, and all its inner beings, the Stula Sharira and the Sukshma Sharira, including the mind, the Buddhi, intellect, everything is Kshetra. And then he says, Kshetragnam chapi mam viddhi. And one who knows this body is a Kshetragna, Arjuna. Kshetragnam chapi mam viddhi. And Bhagavan says that, the knower of this body, you, Arjuna, aham, or you, myself, is nothing but Brahma, is Ishvara. So Bhagavan in the first two shlokas of this Uddesha gives the entire crux of the Atma Gnana, the main source of understanding what is Kshetra, what is Kshetragna. In essence, this is Atma Anatma Viveka, which Bhagavan started from the second Adhyaya. But there he was explaining the Swarupa of the Jiva. Here he is showing the Aikya between the two, the Brahma, Jiva and the Brahma. And then Bhagavan described the Kshetra in Vistara, Savikara, Mudahutam, all the Vikara, modifications of Kshetra. He described all the elements, different 24 elements of Prakriti. And then he says, now Arjuna wishes to understand Kshetragna. And Bhagavan thinks that it's not that easy to understand Kshetragna. You need a pure mind. We all need a pure mind. We need to prepare our mind to understand the Kshetragna, Aham, the Brahma Swarupa. And that's why the 7th to the 11th shloka of the 13th Adhyaya are beautiful values which make us adhikari, which make us eligible for the self-knowledge, the Atma Gnana, the Tattva Gnana. And these are called the Sadguna, Sampatti, the moral values. 20 moral values that Bhagavan describes in these 5 shlokas. These are life-changing values and they make us eligible for, suitable for understanding the Atma Gnana, to hold this Atma Gnana Uddesha. And this needs a maturity of the mind, a certain level of maturity of the mind and the Buddhi, intellect, so that both can be aligned with each other. They both don't work in contradictory ways or opposite ways, but they work in unison together. That is a kind of the maturity of the mind which is important. And these life values are for the seekers, for the Jignasu, for the people who want to understand Atma Gnana, who want to understand what is this Atma Gnana that Bhagavan is talking about. It is not for the Bhakta like in the 12th Adhyaya, or for the Karma Yogi as in the Sthita Prajna, where Bhagavan has described all these values. And in the 14th Adhyaya is going to describe the Gunatita values. But here it is for the Jignasu, the seekers. And what it gives to the seekers, it gives a kind of a right understanding to the seekers. It gives a different kind of a perception, an attitude, a drashti, a vision, different vision with which if we operate our mindset with that vision, with that understanding, and then we perform the right actions, then it makes our personality a very harmonious personality, which Bhagavan very frequently calls the word yukta. And this personality, this harmony in our personality is essential for us to understand, to assimilate, and to live that Atma-jnana, which is the ultimate goal of all the human beings. That is what our Vedas and our scriptures tell us, that this is what we need to understand. So let us come to these moral values, which are also called dharma in our Shastra. And here what Bhagavan is describing are the Samanya Dharma for all the humans. There is something like Vishishta Dharma according to the caste and the Varna and the Ashrama. But these are Samanya Dharma for all humans. And as I understand, what I expect from others, I should not do to others. If I want that others should not hurt me, then I should not hurt others. And what I don't expect from others, I should not do also. So this is what is called as a Samanya Dharma according to our scriptures. This is what is given in Mahabharata. And if we are careful, these moral values will definitely make us more peaceful, will give us a peace of mind, even if we don't achieve the Atma-jnana in this life. But even then, it will make our life much more wholesome, peaceful, and more harmonious. And if we are not careful and don't imbibe these values in our life, then maybe we may, become prosperous, we may become wealthy, we may have a lot of possessions, we may have a lot of comforts, but it will not give us the peace of mind that we all eternally yearn for. And these ethical values, they need to be imbibed in our life for the change that can happen in our life. And that's why our Guruji takes a great length of discussion to understand these values. And that's why we shall also look at it in some details. What is that understanding with which we can actually make a change in our life? And Guruji tells us repeatedly that this is like a mirror to look our own image. This is to look within, to see whether we have these values or not, and how we can imbibe these values. And these values are not said for us to analyze whether the other people who are my spouse or my close ones or my friends or my colleagues have this value and how they can acquire this value. That is not the purpose of my life. I have to look only within and do what is best for me. So let us start with this Sadgun Sampatti, the 7 to the 11 shlokas. We'll first chant the shlokas and then we'll start looking at the detailed understanding of these shlokas. Amanitvam adambhitvam ahimsa shantirarjavam acharyopasanam shaucham stairyam vinigraha Indriyartheshu vairagyam anahankara evacha janma mrityu chara vyadhi dukkha doshanudarshanam asaktiranabhishvangaha putradara gruhadishu nityam cha samachittatvam Ishtanishtopapatishu Mai chananya yogena Bhaktiravyabicharini Vivitta desha sevitvam Aratirjana sansadi Adhyatma jnana nityatvam Tattva jnanartha darshanam Etach jnanamiti proktam ajnanam yadatonyatha. So let us start with the first shloka, Amanitvam. Amanitvam means absence of desire for respect from others. That is the first Sadguna Sampatti that Bhagavana says. We will look at it in a little details from after this slide. Adambhitvam, absence of pretense or hypocrisy. Third is ahimsa. Ahimsa is non-violence. The fourth is Shanti. Shanti means forgiveness or glad acceptance and accommodativeness. Arjavam means simplicity or being straightforward. Acharya upasanam means taking shelter of a guru or doing devotion to the guru. Shaucham. Shaucham means purity. Stairyam, that means steadfastness, being firm in our resolve. And Atma Vinigraha means control or mastery over our mind control. So let us start with Amanitvam, which is the lack of desire for praise from others. Most of us are, having this liking or sometimes craving for having this praise or desire for respect from others. Though we have certain skill sets, we have certain education, we have certain qualifications, but still we always feel that, I am something Sometimes even I feel higher than my own self, what I have. I feel quite superior to what I actually am. And this causes a kind of a desire that others should recognize me as I am and should always appreciate me. So thinking about I am something is not a problem, but the problem comes when we want the appreciation, we want the praise, we want the reward all the time for this, that people should recognize me. And this is a very common problem. And it's very, very disturbing to us, because a lot of times we feel that others are not appreciating me, they are not praising me, they are not giving me the enough respect that I deserve. Then, and that's why Bhagavan tells us that the first attribute to have is amanitvam. This is a lack of desire for praise, constantly craving for that praise or respect from others. It does not mean that we accept whatever people give us and be coward, do not respond. That is not the meaning of being amanitvam. But there is a very subtle difference between swamana, self-respect, and self-praise, atimana, where we always want more and more praise. And what is the root cause of this amanitvam, the manitva, that always craving for respect? That Guruji tells us it's a misunderstanding of our own self. We try to understand others, but we don't try and understand our own self. And we always generally feel that I am something more than what actually I am. Or sometimes we feel I am less than my capacities, and that all these complexes creates a problem. And that's why we always want this fulfillment. So what are the solutions to amanitvam? How can we develop this amanitvam? The first and the foremost solution is that I should learn to assess myself correctly. I should understand myself, assess myself correctly, with understanding that we all human beings have our own virtues and vices. We have our own guna, dosha. I'm also a mixture of some guna, some dosha. If I know my guna properly, then if I know my dosha properly, then I'll try my best to improve on that, and I will not be upset when people point out to me my dosha. So I don't need to hear from others, and that's why I will not have that kind of an expectation of hearing my guna from others if I understand and know my guna well. So that apeksha, that expectation, it is the root cause of my hurt, because that remains unfulfilled, and this is the cause of dukkha. Most of the dukkha is because of our expectations. But if I know myself well, then I will not have expectations from others. And that's why we have to be aware that what hurts me, what disturbs my mind, is something that I should remain away from. If the too many expectations disturb me, I should remain away from it. And the solution for amanitvam, Guruji says, is the right understanding, the right attitude. For most of these values, the solution is the right understanding, right attitude. There is no magic cure for these, only a right kind of a drashti or vision that the Shastra or our scriptures provide us, the Gurujis provide us, can help us. And that is what I am going to share with you today. So the first step is how we must understand that respect cannot be demanded. I cannot demand respect from others, but to understand that respect is commanded from my own endeavor, from my own efforts, from my own being, from my own behavior. And the way I deal with people, that is how people, if I have good qualities, moral qualities, ethical values, then people will definitely respect me. And I don't want that others should respect me. That is not to be demanded. And the acceptance is the first step to change. If I have any dosha, then I must accept those dosha and try to change myself. If others have any guna, I should learn from them. I should accept my own limitations. And that is the first step to change. If I have some expectations, apeksha, and that is causing dukkha, I must understand and accept this limitation. And the third step Guruji tells us is think of the loss. If somebody doesn't praise us or doesn't give us enough respect, what will happen? Nothing will happen. We all have been conditioned with this way that people are not respecting us, and everybody is craving for respect from the others. So who will respect whom? That is the question, because everybody wants to be respected. And the final understanding is that whatever I have achieved, whatever I have become successful, everything has been given to me. This body of mine, this mind, this intellect, this education, everything has been given to me. And a lot of people have contributed to my development, for the amount of time that I can spend and do my duties. A lot of members of the team have contributed to this. So if I see this wider view, I see the contribution of so many people. I don't have too much of thinking about my own self, that I have done this, I have something, and I have achieved this. So this is the kind of understanding that we need to have. The second value is the adambitvam. Adambitvam means absence of pretense. Pretense is some kind of a hypocrisy. So dambha is hypocrisy, where we want to show off more than what we have or what we are. So we may be having certain qualities, and if we want some more appreciation, it is called manitva. But dambha is that when we don't have much, but still we want to show something, that is called dambha. And a lot of us, many of us have this, kind of a subtle kind of a desire to show off our knowledge, ask questions, to show what we know, to show off sometimes our wealth, our possessions, our, a lot of things we want to show, our opinions. And the cause of this is that we feel incomplete from within. We don't understand our paripurna Atma Swarupa, and we always feel that we are very limited, we are incomplete. And the unacceptance of this understanding produces all these, hypocrisy, where we want to show something more than what we have. The loss of having this dambha is that we have to remember what we have shown off, so that next time it doesn't become dichotomous. And most of the times when we do something which is not there, it becomes dishonesty. It is like dichotomy of our personality, and we waste a lot of our time in showing off all these things, which is sometimes, a useless exercise. And this also leads to a split personality and many of the problems or issues that we face daily in our life. So a nice dictum that I like always to remember is that it's important to be good than to look good. And showing off or showing off something outer kind of a material prosperity is not important, but the inner value of being good, being helpful, being selfless, helping others is more important than the outer appearance or personality. And simplicity is something that we all can imbibe, and which is expected for a peaceful life, which is something which is very contrary to the dambha. Dambha is a dichotomy in the personality. Simplicity is having a harmonious or a one-time personality. Ahimsa. Ahimsa means non-violence or non-hurting. And it's generally a common value for all. Though it is said that for the sadhu, sannyasin, ahimsa is paramo dharma. It's the most important. But even for all of us, householders also, ahimsa is a very important dharma. Gandhiji also has spoken a lot about ahimsa. It's a very common value. And our basic understanding that we all have is that let us live and let others live, because every life has its respect. They deserve a respect, they have a value. And it could be any species, but I must make sure that I live happily and I let others live happily, because I don't like that somebody harms me. Reciprocally, I don't want to harm any other species during my lifetime as much as possible. And a lot of people may say that ahimsa can be of different types. One is the bodily or the kaik hinsa, and this itself means, as we understand, ahimsa is a physical hurting. And a lot of people may feel that in the universe, every jiva, every species is dependent on the other species. Jivasya jivanam, jivo jivasya jivanam. It's a shastra word which says that every jiva is dependent on the other jiva for its survival in the universe. Yes, but those species, they don't have a choice, whereas humans do have a choice. We can decide whether we want to be a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian. That is a choice given to us. And the other issue that is very well understood, needs to be understood, is that some kind of hinsa, some kind of violence may be part of our life. When we walk, there may be several ants may be killed on the road, but this is something that we are not aware. It is not deliberate. So what our Shastras teach us is we should avoid all deliberate hinsa. By knowing we should not hurt anyone. Even surgeons, when they cut open a body of the patient, they are doing violence, but the intention behind it is to make the patient well. Similarly, when judges give judgments and send the prisoners or criminals to gallows, that the purpose is not to do hinsa, but is to save the world from hinsa. Similarly, when police people, they punish criminals, then it is so the intention is important, and it should not be a deliberate hinsa. But the more important than bodily violence that we endeavor or work in today's world is the vachik hinsa, is the himsa, the violence by words, and it is most damaging. and day in and out we do this, which is sometimes because of our habit. We are very unaware about how we hurt people by our vachik hinsa, our tone, the words that we speak, and to our near and dear ones, how it creates a rift in our relationships. And the solution Guruji teaches us is that we try to practice to listen more rather than speak more. We try to understand, speak less, and whenever we speak, we should think and speak so that we don't have to say sorry for something that slipped out of our tongue, or we have been loudly thinking something and spoken something without thinking. So that shouldn't happen. And our Shastras teach us that our Vani, our speech, should be Satya, Priya and Hitakari. Means it should be truthful, it must be honest, it must be Priya, likable, so others should like it. And not just it should be Makhan, like others should like it, flattering, but it should be Hitakari, it should be beneficial for the other person. So this is what Shastra teaches us, that our speech should be Mrudu, it should be respectful, it should be soft, it should be, sometimes we have to be firm, occasionally we may have to use strong words, but we should not be harsh. We should not denigrate or disrespect a person. We should try to look at the situation and rather than disrespect a person. And the third type of hinsa is through our mind, which is called manasik hinsa, where people with eccentric mind, with immature mind, they do a lot of harm to others. And Bhagavan Shree Krishna has already told us in the 4th and the 5th Adhyaya how we can make our mind our friend, bandhur atmatmanasastya, not our enemy, by cultivating our mind, by harmonizing our mind, by maturing our mind, so that we can be happy in this world. The next value is Shanti. Shanti means forgiveness or being accommodative. And Shanti is a little different from Sahanshilta. Sahanshilta means forbearance, to Sahan karna. Or Shanti is forgiveness. So forbearance or Sahanshilta is mostly for situations, for circumstances. Say for example, we may have to bear with the extreme heat or sometimes extreme cold or sukha, dukkha and a lot of things, situations which are beyond our control, we may have to bear with it. So this is called Sahanshilta. Whereas Shanti is glad acceptance towards people. So even those who hurt us, we should be large-hearted to forgive them with a glad acceptance so that we don't reciprocate this, we respond to them rather than react to them. And this is very essential for a very healthy, loving relationship. We must understand that everybody is not the same. We are all a bag mixed of qualities, and I also have some limitations. And when I have the limitations, people do forgive me. Quite often they forgive me for what I do, what I should do. And so even I should try and forgive others for some of their limitations by the understanding that it's okay, we are all part of this. Sometimes, we have to be large-hearted and see the other point of view. So this accommodativeness is being flexible, but does not mean that we should be weak. We can be very strong, but this understanding is a very positive and a mature attitude where we are able to forget and forgive both and live happily. It should not be stressful on us that, okay, I have forgiven him, and that pressure should not remain on my mind. It should be a very happy, kind of a very positive forgetfulness or forgiving. That glad acceptance is called Shanti. And Swami Dayanand says, leave them as they are. We'll have more freedom in our life when we leave them as they are. We don't have the contract. Guruji says, we don't have been given the contract to change others or change people. Gladly accept everyone as everybody is different. That is the understanding that we can have. So what is the understanding we need for Kshama, forgiveness? That all situations are not under my control, and that's why I should accept whatever comes to me. And the higher understanding is that situations arise not because of somebody's fault or blame, but it is my own previous karma which gives me this sukha, dukkha, all these that I experience in life. And others are just a nimitta matra to create those situations. If I have this understanding, definitely many of the problems will be solved. The other understanding is that happiness and sadness is a frame of mind. A situation can be happy for one person, the same situation can be sad for the other. So it's how we perceive is more important than actually what it is. So whatever happens is for our own good eventually. If I look back at my own life and see the experience, whatever has happened, I may have lamented at that point of time, but overall, over a period of time, those things which have happened have been very helpful for my progress eventually, because I can't see everything. And expectations are the root of miseries. I would have done the same thing if I would have been in the other's position. So these are some of the kind of understanding, seeing the other side of the view, seeing the other side of the person, and seeing the other side of the situation. If I would have been in this situation, what would I have done? And understanding that whatever it is, my peace of mind is definitely my most important priority. And most of the problems happens because of minor issues, and minor issues take a very major turn, and that's why I should not major on minor, and ego should not dominate. Most of the relationships get drifted apart because of these ego issues which happen in between. So just as I forgive myself, I should also forgive others. When something happens to me, some hurt happens to me, initially it pains, that I pamper a lot, and then I forgive myself. Even when my tongue comes under my teeth, I forgive my teeth, I don't blame my teeth. Similarly, I should look that everything is one, everybody is one, and I should try and learn to forgive others. Next value is simplicity or arjavam. Arjavam also means straightforward, comes from the ruj dhatu, which means straight, and absence of fraud, dishonesty, and it's a very simple personality. Essentially, when the mind, the words, and our actions are all aligned in the same line, whatever we think, we speak, and whatever we speak, we do. If this is the alignment, then this is called straightforwardness or simplicity. It may look very simple, it may sound very simple, but it's rare to have in people. Most of us try to justify whenever somebody points a blame to us. We try to justify our actions, and then we speak something which we don't believe, and we see others' faults, and that's how we try to see everything with a lot of our color. And simplicity gives us, the benefit is that it will give us a lot of santosh, satisfaction, contentment, peace of mind, and the life will become simple. Our relations will become very harmonious. Our bonding with our close, near and dear ones will be very strong with faith if we can remain simple. So there are a lot of benefits of remain simple. But simplicity does not mean that I remain silent and I accept whatever comes to me. I have a right to protest or put my concerns or voice out my concerns or opinion in the right way, in the Satya, Priya, Hitakari way. And simplicity essentially is greatness. And great people, if you look at the life of great people, their characters like Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and a lot of others, they have all been very simple. They have achieved greatness, but they have been very simple. And this simplicity is the ornamental of the great people. It shines out. We don't need to be very elaborate to become great, and accept our own mistakes and others' virtues, and always solicit for help. The next value or the virtue is Acharya Upasanam. Essentially means, Upasana means bhakti, devotion for the Guru. We all need a mentor for gaining knowledge, whatever it could be. It could be a worldly knowledge outside, or it could be some spiritual knowledge inside. But we all need that there should be some mentor who can guide us. Especially when we are on the spiritual path, the inner path, the scriptures are the source of this knowledge. They are the pramana, essentially the evidence of this knowledge. But they have a very hidden meaning, and for an average person like us, it is, at least for me, it is very difficult to understand these subtle subjects and the hidden meaning. Sometimes the words are also very contradictory, and it's very difficult to understand. And here we need a skilled acharya, a skilled guru who can handle these words, who have learned the skill of handling these words which are contradictory, which have a sukshma meaning, which has a different meaning. And this, they have learned it through the parampara, the Guru Shishya parampara, the lineage has taught them this art of handling these words so that it can produce the right kind of the meaning in the Shrota. And the Acharya, our Shastras tell us that should be not just Kshotriya who is learned, who is knower through this parampara, but also steadfast, is also assimilated that knowledge, also is Brahmanishta. So Shrotriya and Brahmanishta are the two words described for the Guru. And it is, our Shastras tell us that it's a grace of the Lord that we can have such a Guru in our life, a Kshotriya and a Brahmanishta Guru, and it is the grace of Guru through which we can understand this knowledge. So this shelter of the Guru is very important to understand this knowledge. And the biggest obstacle on this path is our own pride, our own ego. And the Guru's help also helps us to dissolve our ego. That's why in our Vedic parampara, there was this, Gurukul, when the Shishya, right from his childhood, would go and live with the Guru, and the family will become part of the Guru's family. So he'll understand a lot of values of. So it is the grace of the Lord that we have a Guru in our life. And it is the grace of the Guru that we can learn these scriptures. And we need the help of a Guru in our own parampara, Vedic Vyavastha. The disciple, the student would go to a Gurukul and live with the family of the Guru to understand how the life and imbibe the moral values from the Guru. And Guru will help us to dissolve our pride, to show me the right path, guide me towards the right path with the understanding, so that I can, and he becomes an ideal for me to learn and follow all these values also. Acharya Upasanam, who is a real Guru, is rare, hard to find in these days today, and only those rare and fortunate people can find such a Guru who teaches without any expectation from the student, who detaches all the attachments of the student, not just the worldly attachments, but does not even allow the student to get attached to the Guru also, and always thinks about the benefit of the student and always inspires the student, uplifts the student. So this kind of a Guru is hard to find and very rare, and the fortunate kind of people will get this kind of a Guru who is not just Kshotriya, Brahmanishta, but also gets to have all these values in their life. The next value is Shaucham. Shaucham means purity. Purity in Shastra, it also means auspiciousness. So it's not just purity in the terms of outer purity. Outer purity is definitely important. Outer purity means keeping a clean body by taking regular shower or bath, keeping our hands clean, keeping our clean clothes. The home should be clean where we live. Our asana, our seat must be clean. And Dhana Shuddhi. Dhana Shuddhi means the money that we earn also should come by ethical means. And this also leads to the Shuddhi of the Anna Shuddhi, food. Food also should be the way it is cooked. It should be Shuddha. And all our workplace and everything should be well organized and well managed. So this is the outer purity, which is essential for us to get into a more important part of our life, which is called the inner purity. And this purity of our mind is more important than the outer purity, because this brings me awareness. And this purity is nothing but trying to imbibe the good Daivi qualities, the divine qualities, the virtues as we call them, and avoiding or diminishing or getting let go of our vices, our Kama, Krodha, Mada, Moha, Matsarya, anger, jealousy, all our vices. And the daily introspection, according to Guruji, is the most important way how we can clean our mind of this dirt every day, because this Raga, Dvesha and all these Shada Vikara is basically are the kachra. It's a dirt that we need to clean every day. Just like we clean our house every day, we have to clean our mind of these Raga, Dvesha every day. And that is by Antar-Nirakshana or introspection. The next value is Sthairya. Sthairya means remaining steady, remaining firmness. And this steadfastness is, here in Gitaji, it is not in the worldly endeavors, but in our spiritual quest. Because here we have to do it every day as a routine and making it a habit. So whatever we want to achieve, we have to do this. And this means to have firmness in our actions, in our karma, in our priorities, in our duty, in our kartavya, in all the roles that we play every day, and in all the other sadhanas that we employ, like bhakti, dhyana, all these other sadhanas that we employ. So firmness in not just actions, but all the sadhanas. The second firmness we need to have is a firmness in the goal, in what we want to achieve. And this is what we want. If moksha is my final goal, then this I must understand what is moksha, and all my life I have to change to reach that goal. So in the process, I may have to leave a lot of things, I may have to accept a lot of things, and this is the understanding which is necessary. And to achieve this, the discipline in the schedule is important, with a firm resolve, stairyam, very firm resolve. But we must have some flexibility in our life, not to become very rigid in our rules and regulations, because life goes ups and downs. It has its own ways. There may be situations, circumstances arising, especially for householders like us. And that's why we have to be a little flexible. But as we live it, we have to again get, once that situation is over, we have to get back to our routine, our schedule. And this will increase our self-confidence that we can actually, have this stairyam. And this stairyam helps us to overcome all the difficulties that come in our life with the stairyam, the firmness of our decision-making, steadiness or firmness. Atma Vinigraha. So Atma word here, it means not the soul or the Brahma, but here it means the body, mind and the sense complex with which we identify ourselves as we understand ourselves that I am this body, mind and sense complex. So Atma word in Shastra is also used for this Sanghata, the Karya Karana Sanghata as it is called. Karya is the Sharira and Karana is the Mana, Buddhi and all our sadhanas, the Antarkarana sadhana, all these are called the Karana. And this Sanghata, this Samuha or this complex or this togetherness is called the Jiva, and that is what is also termed as Atma in Shastra. So here the meaning of Atma is this complex. Vinigraha. Grahana means to hold something and Vinigraha means to hold it very well with proper understanding. So Atma Vinigraha essentially means having a complete well control over our body, mind, sense complex, essentially because mind is the master of the body and the senses. It is the mastery of the mind or perfection of the mind or control of the mind or modulation of the mind or maturity of the mind, whatever we call it. And this is not essentially earlier, of course, in the early part it will be with some efforts, which is called Dhamma, with some efforts, but over a period of time it should become effortless, which is called as Shama. And this is also called Sahaja Yantra, which most of the Jignasus who are ahead on the path or the Jnanis will have this kind of a Sahaj Yantra. So our Shastras tell us that our Indriya, Buddhi, Man, everything must be like a trained horse, Sadashwaha. Sadashwaha means like a trained horse which obeys the master. So whenever the mind is so well conditioned that whenever we need to use it, we use it for something. We don't need to use it, then we can withdraw it and put it in our Atma Swarupa and use some contemplation whenever we don't need to use it. So this kind of a conditioned mind is like a trained horse, Sadashwaha. The next shloka. Indriyartheshu vairagyam anahankara evacha janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanudarshanam. So Indriya Artheshu Vairagyam. So Indriya means senses, Artha. Artha means the objects of these senses and Vairagya means dispassion, to have a kind of a detachment from this kind of objects of the senses or dispassion from the objects of the senses. Anahankara is a lack of pride for our own self. Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi, birth, death, old age and diseases. We have a dukkha dosha anudarshanam, to see very clearly the pain, the dukkha, the dosha, the follies repeatedly. Anudarshanam means clearly to see this, repeatedly seeing this. So let us understand what is dispassion or Vairagya from the Indriya Artha, from the objects of the senses. So when we say, Guruji tells us that when we use this word Vairagya, what comes to our mind is that somebody has left his home or all the attachment, possessions and sitting in silence somewhere. But that actually is not Vairagya in the real sense. What Guruji is describing here is the Vairagya, which is a practical Vairagya, which we all can follow in our real life, our day-to-day life. How we can follow this, practice this, letting go, detachment in our life, that is what is described here. So Vairagya word means Vigata Raga, means absence of attachment. Raga means attachment and Vairagya means absence of attachment. Initially, Guruji describes what is not Vairagya. And detachment does not mean that we disrespect people, do not care for people. That is not the meaning of Vairagya. Vairagya also does not mean that we insult other people or we get any relations, any worldly objects, we tiraskar kare. That is also not Vairagya. Vairagya also does not mean that we run away from our responsibilities, we shirk away saying that I am a Vairagi person, I don't want to go to this social. But running away from responsibilities, our duties, our kartavya karma is definitely not Vairagya. Vairagya is also not sitting in silence, in solitude, in some isolated place or in a cave or with torn clothes. That is the impression that we have. That is also not real Vairagya. And Vairagya is also not our forceful control of our mind and thoughts. That is also not Vairagya, that I detach, I have a lot of attachment to this world, I have a lot of thoughts, desires, but I still forcefully try to control myself. That is also not Vairagya. So what is Vairagya? Guruji tells us what is Vairagya, what is Raga, Dvesha, that is something that we understand. Vairagya essentially, Guruji says, is an ideal and a healthy condition of the mind. So what is the ideal condition of the mind? Ideal condition of the mind is that I can see the world as it is. World, persons, situations, as it is, without any of my colors, my prejudices, or my conditioning. Most of the times we are a habit of seeing everything with our own conditioning. So we try to give labels, we try to judge, we give conditioning. And Vairagya means this absence of these raga dvesha. This conditioning is nothing but our raga dvesha. And Vairagya is absent of these raga dvesha, these labels, my labels like good, bad, and the others. So raga means attachment. And to those situations, persons, people which gives me pleasure, and I want that they should not remain away from me. When they go away from me, I have the pain. So that absence gives me pain, that is called raga. Whereas dvesha are the objects, persons, or situations whose presence disturbs me, that is causing dvesha, which gives me pain, so that I get disturbed, and whose absence gives me a lot of pleasure. I'm quite happy in their absence. So this is nothing but raga and dvesha. And that having the absence of raga dvesha, as we described Vairagya earlier, is impossible almost, because we are all conditioned. We cannot just have absence of raga dvesha, then we can't have our jiva bhava. But Vairagya essentially means practically having minimum raga dvesha. Means we may have simple desires, but we should not have kind of a invalid insistence or being obstinate, or we want to have this, otherwise I can't live my life. So this is a minimal raga dvesha, which is healthy, it is fine, it can help us to live life. So this is what is practical Vairagya, what Guruji describes. It is useful for all of us. We all can attain this. Minimization of raga dvesha, minimization of our likes and dislikes, reducing our conditioning of the mind as much as we can, not having prejudices, try to see the world as it is, the persons, the relationships, the situations as it is, rather than give labels to all this. So this is what is a practical Vairagya. And this Vairagya needs a lot of understanding, introspection, needs a firm resolve, and needs constant practice. Only then we can have this with a lot of awareness. And how to achieve this Vairagya? Our Shastras tell us that the base of Vairagya is Viveka. So Viveka is the first, then comes Vairagya. Vairagya which comes with Viveka only is a long-standing Vairagya. Otherwise it's a temporary Vairagya which comes, generally we say Smashana Vairagya. When we go to a crematorium, we see that this is the end of life, this is my eternal, this is my ultimate life. So then, and that Vairagya is called Smashan Vairagya or temporary Vairagya. That is not a Vairagya at all. Vairagya which comes with Viveka, understanding, we look back at our own experience, that whatever I have been doing is not able to give me what I really want. And that's why I give an appropriate value to all objects, persons, situations, and relationships. I don't give undue importance to objects, I don't give undue importance to few people, but I give appropriate importance and value to everyone. Such a healthy attitude towards all the objects, persons, situations of the world is an emotional maturity of the mind, and this is what is called as a Vairagya. So Vairagya is not getting detached away, but the right understanding is Vairagya. This is not permanent. Understanding that this world and all its everything that we see is not permanent, it's only temporary, and makes me independent. It doesn't make me dependent on the people for my happiness. And this objective and healthy attitude, a composed attitude towards our life, towards the people, towards the persons, and this with the understanding that happiness is my state of mind, it is not comes from outside, from the objects. So this understanding actually can help us to achieve this state of Vairagya in our life, and we don't give we give only appropriate importance to each objects and relationships. The next value is adahankara, so lack of ego or lack of the pride. And ego is something that we keep praising our own self, boasting of our own self, and this is a very common thing that we see. Everybody talks about their own self. I've been doing this, I've done this, I can do this, I have achieved this, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. So we constantly keep talking our own fuel our own ego, our own sense, our own boasting, maybe subtle or maybe very obviously. And dissolving this ego is a very, very important part for a seeker on his journey, and this can only happen with satsanga. So normally this ego is called ahankara, when I am associated or identified or affiliated with this body, mind and sense complex, which is this karya karana sanghata. But this ahankara is ashuddha, it is impure because it is mixed with all this atma, anatma, everything is mixed here. it is apurna, because it always gives me this incompleteness, dependent feeling, and that's why I want to achieve more and more. I have many, many desires and wants. And it is asatya, because it is false, it is an illusion, it is mithya. And what I need to do with the spiritual journey, with the sadhana, what I want to achieve and where I want to go, the goal finally is that this ahankara, which is limited to my own body sense complex, I must know that I am not this body, mind, sense complex, but I am the Atma, I am the Sakshi Chaitanya. And after that, I have to understand that I am not just the Sakshi Chaitanya, but I am the Sarva Vyapaka Brahma Chaitanya. So Aham Atma Brahma, that is the Mahavakya of the Upanishad. That is what I have to understand, which is the ultimate goal. And with this, I will understand that this Aham, my real self, is not just, it is pure, it is very Shuddha, it is very pious, it is not impure, it is not mixed with Anatma, it is Purna, I am complete, Purna Mada, Purna Midam, Brahma is complete, and it is Sarva Vyapaka, it is ever pervading, it is everywhere, and it is the real Aham, it is my real identity, it is my true I-ness. So this is where I have to reach from where I am today. The places where generally we praise ourselves is for our looks, our wealth, our position, our education, our family, subtle things like our knowledge, skills, our thoughts, our opinions. And on a seeker journey, we experience many, many situations, achievements, we have peace of mind, we do some good work, we do donations. So for all these sattvic things, we also have a lot of ahankara. So constant awareness is the first step to root out this ego. That is very important. And how to get rid of this ego? Do not focus on my own self, but try to see the entire world, have a wider horizon, higher vision. From Vyashti, I must try to look at the Samashti on a longer term, because we are worried about our own small little problems, pains and our dukkha. We don't see what is there in the world. There is so much of pain, and we still don't get awakened by this pain. The second understanding is that God has created plenty like me. I'm not the only one who can do this. There are many like me. Everything has been created in abundance. There is abundance in the world. There is no scarcity. And this is the understanding. And my success or my achievements have been contribution by so many people. So this is the understanding. So many people have given up so much for my success or for whatever I have achieved. And lasting satsang can only provide us with this new understanding. Our Shastras give us this understanding. Closeness with a Guru, a gentle nudge by Guru, some Unguli Nirdesha, by some Katha, by some Updesha. Guruji will tell us that this is where we need to take care of our Ahankara. It will not be a direct assault on our ego, but it will be very subtle, how Bhagavan Shree Krishna does to Arjuna in showing his Vishwarupa, showing his greatness, and by this dissolving the ego of Arjuna, that you are nothing in front of me. Doesn't need to say that, but we need to understand that. And finally, devotion to the Lord, seeing his greatness, seeing his grace everywhere, that it is through him that I am able to do everything, all this, being an instrument in our, wherever we do any action, being an instrument, nimitta matra bhava. So that bhavana, if we have in our mind that I am an instrument, God is doing all this through me, he is making me as an instrument and making me do this, all this kind of will get us rid of our ego. Janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanu anudarshanam, seeing the pain of birth, death, old age and disease. This essentially means seeing the reality of life, seeing the pain of life, essentially. And this is not a negative attitude. We don't want to be depressed that there is only pain in this life, there is no happiness, there is no pleasure. That is not the purpose of seeing this, but is seeing the reality of the life. It is seeing the truth, being aware about the truth, that there is so much pain in life. And pain is there to awaken us. Sometimes, for Siddhartha, for the Gautam Buddha, only some pain, seeing some old man, was just enough to awaken him and to make him enlightenment as his goal. For most of us, we see daily so much of pain, but still we don't get awakened. And there is so much of pain in birth, even in the fetal life, and for children also. It's a very dependent life. It's quite painful. Diseases, they are very unpredictable. There are so many diseases come to us because of our destiny. Some of them are self-created because of our lifestyles, but they can come to us anytime and can create a lot of pain and create a havoc in our lives. Old age, which is inevitable. Most of us will be passing through that. It's a phase of dependence, helplessness, where all our capacity of all our sharira, indriya, mana, everything, the capacity reduces and there is a lot of dependency. And finally, death. We all know that it is the definite endpoint, but it is very unpredictable. We don't know when it will come, and we are all helpless about the death of not only ours, but our near and dear ones. And that's why all this is painful. And this is the pain that Lord Krishna wants us to see. Anudarshanam means clearly see this repeatedly. We must see this pain. It is the reality of life, and that is what we must see. Asakti ranabhishwangaha putradara gruhadishu nityam cha samachittatvam ishta nishto papattishu. Asakti, lack of attachment. Anabhishwangaha putradara gruhadishu, lack of too much affection towards children, spouse, home, etc. Nityam cha samachittatvam ishta anishta papattishu, always keeping the mind in balance in all the ishta anishta, whatever we like or dislike. Whenever we have all these prapta, then having equanimity in all these in these afflictions. Asakti, let us start with asakti. Means lack of attachment. Now sakti means attachment, asakti means lack of attachment, whereas asakti is another word, means too much of attachment. So there is a word difference between asakti and asakti. Attachment is sanga. Sanga means attachment. It could be for objects, it could be for persons, it could be for situations, and we all know that how we get attached to a lot of things in our life every day in and out. The understanding is that I don't want it to leave me. I want it again and again, because leaving becomes very painful. So this is raga or asakti. And this creates a kind of an invalid, insistent, obstinate situation of the mind that I want it to remain with me at come what matter. And then I start developing a feeling of ownership, maliki bhava, over all these possessions, persons, and want to control them. Should not be away from me. This could be anything. It could be all my sukha, all my happiness, all my wealth, my stocks, could be anything. So this kind of a sakti attachment to our spouses, people, persons, near dear ones, to anyone, to our children, and all this is something which is called asakti. And it is very easy to develop this attachment. It's a very easy to develop, especially for emotional people, but it's very, very difficult to leave. So what is the solution for being free from our attachments? Guruji tells us that, Swami Dayanandji tells us that right understanding is the way. The problem is me and solution is also me. So the first understanding is that I am not an owner, but I am a trustee. This trusteeship bhavana, that I am just a managing a person of this. I am not a real owner of this, whatever I have, whatever I have been given. So that is the first understanding, and essentially this is the reality, because all this ownership that we have for our possessions is all very temporary. I may be owning this house, this car, this stocks, but it's all temporary. Today I am owning it, tomorrow somebody else will be owning this. So only one lordship is the real owner, Sabka Malik Ek. This is what we speak, and that is what understanding we must have. And this primordial relationship between me and the God has to be given the utmost priority. Only then we can remain free from these attachments. And whatever I have been given by the Lord, I must make the best use to progress and reach my goals. And everything in this world is very, very temporary, transient. This is the understanding that we need to have. Anabhishwangaha putradara gruhadishu. That means lack of too much of affection towards children, spouse, home, and others. Anabhishwangaha. Anabhishwanga means lack of too much of love or affection. So this too much of affection or love, what it does, it colors my mind. It causes this raga or dvesha. So I cannot see the clarity, causes moha. With this, my mind is covered, different colors, and we can't see what is the reality. And this moha or this affection, too much of affection, can be for our children. We commonly pamper our children, and sometimes they become indisciplined. Sometimes we control their freedom. We don't give them too much of freedom out of our excessive love or affection. So all these problems can occur. Even for our spouse, too much of love or affection affects our mutual trust. We try to control them. We don't give them the enough respect, love, and the freedom they deserve and desire. And that is how we try to control them with this Maliki Bhav. Gruh Adishu, home and all its other possessions that we have. We also sometimes have a lot of possession, or affection or excessive love and attachment. Nityam cha samachit tattvam ishta anishta sampapattishu. Always having the mind in equipoise, in balance, in equanimity, in the likes and dislikes. Equipoise or samatva is a journey, and param samatva, Brahma, is the goal of this journey. But this samatva does not mean that we become rigid. We should try to remain compassionate. The like are the rag or the attachments. When we try to be very happy, we should remain, samatva. We shouldn't become too elated when we get something that we like. And in situations like there is a death of the near one, incurable disease, we have, a dislike or a denial phase. We don't want to accept the reality. But we must understand that just by not accepting the reality does not change. That's why we should not be too sad. Sadness will be definitely there, but we should try to overcome this grief by understanding the reality, by accepting the reality. And this is what is the nityam sa cha samachittatvam. So how to cultivate this attitude of samatva? Having a wide horizon, not just looking at our own self or our own near one's death, but to see on a samashti level, on a wider horizon. So many people, life and death are two sides of the same coin. Every day so many deaths happen, and some nimitta is going to be there for this kind of a death. By not to make major of minor things, learning to forget and forgive, and peace of mind, making it my most important priority so that I don't get upset or disturbed in any of these up and down situation of life. Acceptance of any situation is golden, with this understanding that this is the solution for most of our problems, that will keep my mind in samatva. And time is the healer, understanding that all this will eventually pass. Everything is temporary. Even this most difficult time, most difficult circumstances will eventually pass, and time is the healer. And having that kind of a faith that whatever happens is for my own benefit, I can remain in samatva, I can remain in equanimity. And responding to situation rather than reacting to situation will make me more peaceful, more in samatva. Mai chananya yogena bhakti avyavicharini vivitta desha sevitvam aratir jana sansadi. So this is for the serious seeker who wishes to progress on the path. Mai cha ananya yogena bhakti avyavicharini. Bhagavan says, having my constant connection with the one-point devotion. Vivitta desha sevitvam means to remain in a secluded or an isolated place. Arati jana sansadi, avoiding large get-togethers of people. So what does it mean? Maicha ananya yogena bhakti avyavicharini. Bhagavan uses two words here. One is ananya bhakti. Ananya means na anya, means one-point devotion to the Lord. And the second word Bhagavan uses is avyabhicharini bhakti. Avyabhicharini means unconditional love and reverence, which is, vyabhichar means, mind may be somewhere else and bhakti may be somewhere else. But here it is mind and our bhakti both are at one place. It is unconditional love. It is, a devoted love and reverence. And underlying faith is very, very important to have such kind of a bhakti. Unless there is shraddha, we cannot have bhakti like this, because ultimately our final goal is that, we have to go to Atma Jnana, and only with Shraddha and Bhakti we can reach to Atma Jnana with these mulya. And with this Bhakti, we are able to accept the ups and downs of life because we have faith in a higher power. We have faith that whatever He will do will be for good for us. We remain equipoised, samatva in all situations, and we are able to develop that kind of a Vairagya, which is essential. Only with the Bhakti, with this understanding, we can develop that Vairagya, which can help us to assimilate the Atma Jnana. So the Bhakti may begin with Saguna Bhakti, but essentially then we have to progress towards the Nirguna Bhakti, Avyabhicharini Bhakti. And the great benefits of devotion is that it makes my mind very flexible and soft, so that it does not get hurt or fractured all the time for little things. It dissolves my identification, my ego, my false pride with my own self, because gradually I'll try to see Bhagavad Buddhi everywhere, the Lord, and it makes my mind pure so that I can absorb this gnana. It increases the acceptance and reduces our pain. It helps us to develop faith in the God. Whatever happens is for good. And seekers never underestimate the devotion. Bhakti is a very big role to play in our sadhana, because bhakti is the only way our antakarana will become pure, shuddha, and then Satvika, Samatva, and then we can gradually go on to understand this Atma Jnana. Vivitta Desha Sevitvam, to remain in a isolated or a secluded place or a secluded place, creating a habit of staying alone, and not just alone, but alone with joy, enjoying that time with aloneness with our own self, making the best use of the time when we are alone. And this, we must understand that this Adhyatmic sadhana is an inner journey. We have to spend time with our own self. And when we are alone, we are not dependent on the text, TV, mobile, the music for our aloneness. We should be able to enjoy time with our own self and should be using the time for learning Shastras, scriptures, meditation, contemplation. Arati Jana Sansadi. Arati Jana Sansadi means avoiding large get-togethers. Arati means no craving for. Jana Sansadi means large group of people. So essentially avoiding unnecessary social contacts. So we all know that crowd mentality, the herd mentality is very different, and that's why we should be aware. We should think before we speak and behave in a crowd, because otherwise we tend to behave like a crowd, and we should try and put limits, boundaries to our behavior and avoid crossing our limits and avoid bad company in a crowd. And satsang is a very great enabler on this path, because it helps us to understand that these are all unnecessary actions. These are all avoidable things. I should try and avoid whatever social contacts I can avoid rather than disturb my mind. Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam Etaj Jnanam Iti Proktam Ajnanam Yadatonyatha. So finally in the 11th shloka, the final shloka of these Mulya is the 5 shlokas of this Sadguna Sampati, the Mulyas, the Sadguna Mulyas, or the moral values, the ethical values. This is the final shloka where Bhagavana is showing us the final steps to the spiritual journey, which will lead us to the Jnana. That is the final step. How we can, so far he's talked about the eligibility, Adhikaritva. We have to become eligible to understand this Atma Jnana. But now this is the last step. The last steps is describing in this shloka, which will lead us to that Atma Jnana, and for which we have to become eligible. And these steps which Bhagavan is describing in this shloka are also called the Antaranga Sadhana of the Jnana, the close sadhana. The so far that have been described, the Mulya and the others, are the Bahiranga Sadhana. They are the outward sadhana for taking us close to the Atma Jnana. So this is how, what is the step? Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam. Bhagavan says, pursue the study of this Adhyatma Jnana. Adhyatma means Adi Atma. Adi Atma Jnana means the knowledge of our own self. Atma Jnana, we may call it Brahma Jnana, we may call it Tattva Jnana. It's all one and the same, because Atma, Brahma and Tattva, they're all the same. And this must be done Nityatva, on a regular basis, always, ever, always, every day till the end of our life. And these Adhyatma sadhanas, which are the main three sadhanas, which are the Antaranga sadhanas, very close to knowledge, are called Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana. Shravana is the Vedanta Shravana from the Guru Mukha. If we understand what is given in Vedanta Shastra, Manana means contemplation, means we do Manana, all our doubts have to be cleared. And finally, Nididhyasana is the Vedantic meditation, where the Viparyaya, the opposite samskaras have to be changed by contemplation, constantly meditating on what we have heard and what we have understood. Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam means Tattva Jnana Artha Darshanam. That means, what is the Artha? Artha means what is the benefit, what is the real phala of the Tattva Jnana, what is the main benefit of Tattva Jnana. That benefit we should constantly darshanam. Anudarshanam means constantly seeing, constantly keeping that goal in our mind, that this is where is the greatest benefit. And we all know that moksha is the real benefit of Tattva Jnana. So keeping that constantly in our mind. And Bhagavan says, Etad Jnanam iti proktam. And Bhagavan says, so far whatever I have told you from Amanitvam, Madambitvam, Ahimsa, Shanti, Arjavam till now, everything, these values, he says, itself is Jnanam iti proktam. In my view, Bhagavana view, though these are the values which will lead us to Jnana, but Bhagavan says these values are itself Jnana, because they will make us eligible to understand this Atma Jnana. So these values, Bhagavan himself is describing that this is not just a sadhana, but they are actually the knowledge. But of course, The real knowledge is the Tattva Gnana, the Adhyatmic Gnana. And Bhagavan says, Ajnanam Yadata Anyatha. Ajnana means everything else. Anyatha. Anyatha means everything that is contrary to this, right? Which is opposite to this is Ajnana, is ignorance of our own self. He says, so everything that is Amanitvam, contrary to this is Manitvam. Ahimsa, the contrary is Himsa. Adambitvam, the contrary is Damba, having Damba or having hypocrisy. So all these is ignorance. All these is born, all these Asuri Sampatti is born out of ignorance. All this Saralta, Rujutva, so opposite is Damba, hypocrisy. All this Bhagavan is saying is all ignorance, and all this arises from the Ajnana of our own self. This is what Vedanta tells us very clearly. We will see this in details in the next session, where Bhagavan is going to give us the Atma Gnana and is going to show clearly what is this Atma Gnana, how we can understand this, what are the benefits of Atma Gnana in the next session. This we come to the end of this session. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Para Brahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.